Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. It's your friend Rick from Blind, and today I'm going to introduce you all to Annette Stewart. She's the Senior Director of U.S. Business Acceleration and Integration at RBC, one of Canada's largest banks, and certainly one of the largest banks in the world. She spent her career focused on derivatives regulation, front to back trading process, overall firm process improvement, legal trade confirmations, and risk and regulatory initiatives affecting the cloud. Annette has worked on Wall Street for 20 years for companies such as Barclays Capital, Citadel Investment Group, Credit Suisse, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, Market, PwC, and more before settling at Royal Bank of Canada. Hopefully, I did your bio justice, Annette, but just
Yes,
in case, can you walk us through your career there?
sure. So it's great to be here, by the way, with you, Rick and Jack. So from my career perspective, I was at law school, went to Iowa Law School. And it's funny, I realized as we're talking, I have my Iowa Law behind me.
Mhm.
So I went to Iowa Law, was going to be a district attorney. Long story short, I had a great opportunity. I learned it. And then I thought, wait, I don't want to do this. So next thing, here I am graduating from with my JD, no job, decide to go to Chicago because my sister is in Chicago, and I apply for jobs. Very fortunately, I go to this place called Robert Half Legal, and they say, I know the right place for you. Next thing, I'm at Citadel. Don't know who they are. Here I am, a law student, right? Don't know anything, but I'm just putting my best self forward. And I remember them saying, okay, listen, if you can learn the law, you can learn derivatives, you're hired. They hired me in to help with documentation, negotiations for derivatives with ISDAs. I did a lot of great work there. So that started exactly what you mentioned there. And I learned a lot about derivatives front to back, kind of working on the trading, working on the documentation, inputting trades. It was so exciting at a hedge fund because you got to do everything. So enjoyed that. And then it was some years later, Goldman Sachs said, hey, let me take you to New York, give you this opportunity, which I couldn't say no to. So it was back in the day when they did first class moves, and I went to New York City, and that's where I kind of landed for majority of the rest of my career as well too. But it was all within really collaborating teams, delivering on big projects, of course, the documentation, negotiation, and risk work. But I found I was able to put that into a lot of what I do, and the communication and collaboration just worked in as well. But you got it all. I think I kind of jumped more on a couple of different places for a better opportunity for where I could utilize my skill set. And I always found my career to be something that you wanted to just see, am I optimizing myself the best way possible? And when great opportunities came, I jumped and I took advantage.
Annette, how was it? Because 20 years ago, it still wasn't completely common to have women working at a place like Citadel. And by the way, for the people in the audience who are watching and not familiar, Citadel is not just like they're an amazing top tier, top of the line hedge fund alternative investment shop. And so is Goldman and Barclays for those who, because a lot of people who watch us are in the tech side, so they may not be aware, but these are like marquee names. So how was it as a woman starting out on Wall Street 20 plus years ago? Did you have a hard time? Were you accepted? What was it like?
Well, I have to say one thing, the Citadel culture, which started it, was more about collaboration and bringing everyone together. So I really did enjoy that aspect. I felt very welcomed. I believe more to your point, when you get into some of the larger banks, it's a little more segmented because the groups are segmented. You're in this team and that team, et cetera. But that's where they have employee resource groups, or actually, and I joined the Financial Women's Association when I first moved to New York because I didn't know anybody there. And so I joined the FWA, and I'm able to meet people in different industries, all in finance, different areas, and work with them. But to your point, it was a lot of me building up my confidence,
Mhm.
having to speak at the table. I was that person, I'll never forget, at Citadel. I'd arrive early to a meeting, but I sat on like the side chair. And I don't know why I did that, And I remember people saying, hey, come sit at the table. You're early enough. It was more the side chairs were when you come in late, you jump in the side chair. So I had to kind of get myself deprogrammed to think, okay, you're not just a bystander, you're involved. And a lot of folks were really helping to shepherd my career and being good mentors along the way. But I found sometimes it was just my own mindset I had to jump out of. And I was able to do that. But to your point, I found with sponsorship, and a lot of men have been great mentors and sponsors of my career, and a lot of women as well. So it's really just being open, meeting people genuinely. And then I found that they helped me a lot, Jack. But to your point, no, not easy. I think it's getting better. But if you look at the upper echelons, there's still a lot of work to do.
Did you find that was there discrimination, and also how was it as I understand, your first generation who went to college and
Yes.
went to Wall Street? Uh, did you confront like any biases or prejudice, or people felt very comfortable?
Well, I think it's interesting because as you see, my name is Annette Stewart, and I look because I'm multiracial, all kinds of races, but my name confuses people because that is my name, Annette Stewart. So I have found that, mostly in communicating, getting to know folks, they always saw it was a bit more genuine in my discussion, that it helped. And Jack, I was always involved, to your question, in like employee resource groups and helping students and mentoring as well. So I think when people saw that part, they were a little more welcoming from that perspective. So I didn't have any issues, but I will say from being first generation, I mean, I didn't have a lot of contacts. I didn't have a network, which is why I had to rely on like the Financial Women's Association or 100 Women in Finance, these groups. That's what brought me into meeting more people versus somebody who just has a whole plethora of contacts because their dad or their mom have been in business. So I had to create it. That was some effort, but again, it's not for the faint of heart. It's going out, shaking a hand. Hi, my name's Annette. It's great to meet you, and really creating a conversation.
Well, can you share a little bit more about the financial women in on Wall Street? Because
Sure.
I mentioned before the show, Rick, I was talking to her, I'm jealous because I did speak at one of her events, and then I linked in to her and some other folks. And Rick, I'm telling you, you should join too. Like they're always doing something. It's crazy. Like on LinkedIn, every day I see like they're at this place, they're at have this meeting, they have this, and it doesn't seem like bored. You know how like a lot of times they say, "Hey, we have this meeting," and everyone looks bored out of their mind. They're like actually having fun. I'm like, all right, I swear to you, Rick, it's gonna sound silly. I was thinking, like, all right, is this gonna be weird? I want to join. I know I'm a guy. Is this gonna be weird? If I'm gonna freak people out because
Yes.
I want in. I mean, because like I don't have like a group, a network like that, and maybe Rick will join too, so I won't feel as uncomfortable. Is that okay?
No,
Is
well,
that cool?
well, we have a men's alliance, so let me tell you.
Okay.
So the
So yeah, tell us
FWA,
all about
it's
what it's like. What's that
sure,
the
sure.
whole thing?
So go figure
Yeah.
this. I'm at Goldman Sachs. I know nobody. I'll never forget the first thing they said is join the Financial Women's Association. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is like my first week at Goldman. I learned about it. It's fwa.org. I checked them out. I went to a couple of events and I met some really wonderful people. The goal of it is helping to advance women in finance. It started with women in the past who just were kind of shut out of those rooms and decided we're going to create our own group. And that's where the FWA came from, more primarily based in New York. But to that point, really what we do is we're helping with Men's Alliance. We're growing men and women, bringing people together. If anything, just to have great speakers, to empower, and to give some knowledge as well. We have folks from all kinds of, banks as well, retired, maybe lawyers, you have some other professionals, but it's a great opportunity. And one thing we're doing, for example, we have an international business conference in Greece. It's May 11th through the 18th. So I've been all over LinkedIn about it for folks to join us. We have speakers. We're going to talk about the Greek economy, but we're going to also enjoy. So to that point, it brings you more of a fellowship of folks in finance or just people that want to be involved in some form of the financial industry and world. We have journalists as well, et cetera. Just be a part of it and grow your network. And that's really what we do. But men are welcome. So Rick and Jack, you're welcome to join. And we have the Men's Alliance as well to get you, if you want to be more involved from that perspective and grow us as well. So very happy to have you.
No, there are so many people that they go on a website, they go on a LinkedIn page, maybe they see so many events, so many organizations, so many members, and they might feel a bit intimidated in terms of, well, I have to network, but maybe I feel like these events are cringe or there's maybe even scary. Do you have advice for a first timer, given that it seems like you moved all the way to New York, you sought out this group, you were
I'm
told to
from
join.
Texas. Go ahead, Rick. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, for someone else that might feel the same way that you did, where it's like, I literally know no one, or I hate networking events. What's your advice there in terms of taking that first step to build that network?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Again, someone from San Antonio, Texas, first generation here in New York City, and trying to meet people, because a lot of what you'll find out is relationships are key, right? You want to build relationships. What I would recommend, and it's funny because people won't believe you, but I'm more of an introvert that's forcing myself to be an extrovert, among other people, is it's really worth it. Keep in mind that it's so great to meet people and to give yourself that push to just get up and shake a hand if possible, get on that Zoom call, whatever it is, make that effort, because you never know if that person you're going to meet is going to change your life in some way, or you're going to change theirs. And so I always remember that as I think about giving back. Maybe this person, I could connect this person with that person, and there's that ability to be a connector even if it doesn't benefit me. So I would say push yourself in a positive way. And no, most people are going to be probably like me as well. We're more introverted, pushing ourselves. And in theory and truth, I think we're all kind people, especially as we meet a stranger, in the sense of a networking event. You're like, hey, good to meet you, Jack, and that's Stewart. Yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about yourself, etc. And so I think for me in those settings, I hope people feel comfortable and know that you never know. This could be the contact that can help link you or help you link somebody to something great. You never know.
Now, is there a wrong way to do networking?
Mhm.
I'm gonna out myself a little bit, but when I was in college and I was told to network, sometimes I just had the most awkward interactions because I got really tactical, right? I would
Mm.
go in, I would scan people's badges or their name IDs, try to figure, oh, well, Rick works at this company and Annette's at RBC. Oh, Annette, RBC, I really want to work at RBC and make a beeline for you, right? Is that
Yeah.
the right approach? Is there something
Well,
better perhaps?
as a mentor, I have a lot of mentees that are in school, probably doing things like that. I would say the key would be, okay, maybe you want to target people you want to get to know. However, I think it has to be a genuine opening. The wrong way to network would be, and I've seen this happen. Hi, my name's Annette. Here's my resume. Jack, I see you work at RBC, and here's my resume. You don't know anything about me. You just know my name is Annette, and here's my resume. And I've seen a lot of people do that. And it's unfortunate, and even folks in transition as well, right? Because people say, hey, Rick, you work where I want to be. Here's my resume, and forget about me, because I'm not talking about myself. So I think the wrong way is just to jump in with the motive versus Rick, great. He works at a company that I've been eyeing, but let me go, shake a hand. Hey, Rick, how are you? My name's Annette. Great to meet you. What brought you to this event? Whatever it may be, start a conversation. So I think the wrong way is that target like that with the resume or the job, or hey, I saw this job opportunity, reference 12345 on your website. Can I apply for it? No joke. So these things happen a lot. And it's a matter, if it's a friend of yours and Rick and Jack, fine. If you're my friend, you see something, you need a hand, let me know. I'm going to help you. But if I've never met you before, it's really hard to put my name out there, to get you a job opportunity. So that's what I would say, Rick, on that end. I don't mean to take away from the collegiates that might be doing something similar and targeting people, but make it genuine. Get them to know you. And then hopefully it turns into, you know what, send me a resume. We have opportunities. Maybe I can put you forth on that. You want it to be like that potentially, with a relationship.
For those who are a little shy or introverted, is there any hack that you could recommend? Because you're
Sure.
feeling, I can tell at this point, at least from the outside, it seems you're super comfortable in these situations, but I think most people aren't. So any
Mm.
advice, like little tricks, little hacks, how they could just get to meet people and know people?
You know, I've met a couple of CEOs in my past that have told me, don't ever forget, we're all people. Everybody is a person. So don't ever put these folks on a pedestal, and don't be nervous, is that bottom line. And it's funny along those lines too. I think even if people see, their movie star or whatever, I mean, that's a person as well. So just to kind of keep in mind that we're all people. If there's an opportunity, and to your point, we're at a networking event in my scenario, and I see Rick standing over here, and you're not busy, maybe you're getting an hors d'oeuvre. I don't know what you're doing, Rick, in my scenario, but I'm going to go up and say, hi, my name's Annette. It's great to meet you and have a conversation. So I think with just taking that, remembering we're all people, number one. Number two, we're all at this event, or we're all in this situation, obviously, for the networking. And then I think the bottom line is typically people are going to be nice to you if you go up and say hello. And so it's more in taking it from there and where that goes. So I don't know if that helps, Jack, but I think it's having that courage to push ourselves to try to meet people. And again, going back to my original, you never know what that's going to lead to. A great relationship, in the sense that can help you from a career perspective, or something you can connect to help a friend of yours.
Yeah, it does, because sometimes you just need that little spark, that
Yeah.
once you get that little victory, let's say you go to an event and, I see, I meet this guy, Rick Chen, and say hello, and they have a good relationship. Then it spurs me to say, oh, it works. Okay. I'll now do the same thing and reach out to Annette. And you bring, I think what I notice a lot, if you get little victories, sometimes that's all you need in life, little victories, and then you feel good about yourself, and it empowers you to go on to the next one. And then if you have another little victory, then you feel stronger, and then it's self-fulfilling. But if you don't do it, it goes in reverse. Then you just kind of fall down a little bit, because your peers are going higher and you're going lower because you're just withdrawing, and it's just a downward fall. So it's almost like you have to do it. You have to push yourself, whether you like it or not. It sounds harsh, but to really get out there and make
Yeah.
yourself known.
Well, I think it's push yourself, but I'll tell you a funny thing. So living in New York for a while, you'd see a lot of the Broadway folks, and Hugh Jackman's always on Broadway. And I remember one of my friends was like, "Oh my gosh, there's Hugh Jackman." I was like, "Where?" And they pointed him out. And I waved to him. I just waved. We waved back. And my friend's like, "Oh my gosh, he's so famous." And I remember saying, "He's a person, you're a person, just wave." And that was it. And I was like, this is New York, everybody's famous. Right. So it's one of those things of that, seriously, right? And in New York City, you want to feel like we're all famous. Everybody is famous. And that was just kind of my funny note, because I remember and if you would just wave back, no big deal. But it's, again, just kind of one of those notes. I didn't go over, or I didn't get an autograph or anything. It was like, hey, hey, acknowledging, good to see you, acknowledge back, carry on. But bottom line is remembering we're all people. And if this is something, an opportunity could be hindering you if you're not putting yourself out there. And even internally, wherever you work, in your own bank, in your own company, if you're not putting yourself out there to shake the hand of the CEO if you see him, or some other C-suite people, I mean, that's a missed opportunity. This is your bank. I work at this bank too, right? It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you. So things along those lines, I think we always need to just give ourselves that courage to push and just say hi. That's all I'm asking. And then maybe you'll become memorable, and some more conversation will happen in that sense. Hey, tell me where you work, what area are you in, etc. Things like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important, particularly in this point in time, because what I'm seeing firsthand is, for white collar professionals, the market is really not so great. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not great. So that you need to stand out. You have to stand out, because when you have, within the overall zeitgeist, what's happening, you have AI, so companies aren't sure what's going to happen. Should we hire Jack? Maybe let's hold off because AI maybe could take the place. So now more than ever, you have to find ways to get known and get seen, so that either A, you keep your job, or B, you can get a new job. And I know we talked last time, and then before the show a little bit, that you have, a number of friends who are in transition. So for
Yes.
them, this is a big important thing, because the more you stay home and it's out of sight, out of mind. So for people who are watching this, who are in between roles, a lot of times what I find out, Annette, and Rick, I don't know if you see this too, this happens a lot to guys. I don't know if it happens to women, but I see this happen to guys a lot, where they're so wrapped up in their identity that if they're in between jobs, they're embarrassed to say anything. So they don't go to social occasions. They withdraw because they're embarrassed. And then no one knows they're out of work, and no one's going to help them because they don't know that they need to help this person. So that it
Yes.
just gets worse.
Well, I see that a lot, and you said it nicely with identity. And think about, what is our identity? And it's hopefully not just your job title, it is your entire identity. So I think it's separating that out, to your point, Jack. And if we're able to do that, to recognize you lose this opportunity, okay, great. Let's start letting people know so we can hopefully get some more recommendations, find something else that might be more fitting from friends that know us, right? And I talk about this story. I won't say the bank, but there was one bank did a massive layoff, and I was part of this massive layoff. Let's just say like thousands were laid off, right? I don't remember how many, but it was at least 1,000 or so. So we're all walking out. We had to go get our papers and the whole bit, a big group of us. I'm on my phone. I'm calling somebody saying, hey, I just got laid off, and I just want to make sure, if there's any opportunities you're aware of, let me know. And I'll never forget, one of my colleagues was right next to me and said, oh my gosh, why are you doing that? That's so embarrassing. Why? She was hit in the moment, right? Don't get me wrong. I was in the moment too, but I was like, I need another job, and I just told her, I said, well, you got to let people know so that they can help you or give you some recommendations, right? And, at that point, she was a little shocked, taken aback. And I always wonder to this day, if I go back to her, what she thought in that moment. But for me, I remember thinking, there's no harm. I need to find a job. I need to let people know. But I do realize, Jack, to your point, that's not easy for people. But I would say, what happens if you don't? Well, people aren't going to help you because they don't know you need help. People aren't going to say, send me your resume. And that's what happened, by the way. Send me a resume, do this. I got a job quickly right after. But the people that kind of crawl, go into the corner, let's be sad, it's not going to work that way. We've got to continue to push ourselves. So I know exactly what you mean. And what I've learned a long time ago now, being in this industry, my identity is not just my job. My identity is so many. I mean, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm, I'm an alumni of, schools, et cetera. There's all these things. And then, yes, there is my senior director or my management, whatever it is, that identity that I am from a work perspective. So I would just say that just be mindful. You're more than your job title, but also I understand we need a job and we need to make sure we're continuing to work and hopefully exercise that opportunity and get career growth as well. I hope that helps, but I totally
Helps a
know
lot.
that, Jack, and I've been through that.
It helps a lot. And that's really important to say, and people need to hear it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
related to this, I'm curious, on Wall Street, because a lot of the people who watch this show are more tech oriented, but what we're trying to do is build out and grow into Wall Street and finance and other verticals as well to, build out the audience. What can you share with people that's going on in Wall Street now? And then if, let's say, there are people who have tech roles, and as we've seen, lots of layoffs in tech, if they want to move over to Wall Street, are there opportunities there for growth?
Well, there's definitely what I always joke about our bank right now, where I'm at, is we're also like a small tech company. All banks need to grow in technology as well. So, and that's just part of the future. So when we talk about technology, I almost see it synonymous with the banks. When I worked at Citadel, I mean, it was high technology there to create the best technology to help us with trading and help us with a lot of the things that we are processing within our day-to-day. So I would say, if you're a technologist, look on Wall Street because there's some great opportunities there as well, and they need that skill set. But think about it as ways to optimize. How can we do things better? I know people do have the fear of AI on some instances, but for us, it's not really something I see taking over any jobs for quite some time now. If anything, it's more, how do we build, but then how do you also come together, collaborate with folks like myself, other business folks, and just say, how can I make a great solution? So Jack, I think really to the point, if your audience is technology, Wall Street is all about technology, and we want the finest and we want the best, and we want it now, right? So that's where I think it's a great opportunity.
Now, would they need software engineers, software developers, or would they also need just data analysts and other types of, professions?
Everything. I mean, everything. And don't forget, there's also, as we look at cyber attacks, banks
Mhm.
are looking at that. We need folks to be able to help us with those potential issues. How can we ensure that we're keeping our banks safe? So people to come in from that end also. But I would say everything. And even when you think about IT technical project managers as well, also people to come and help us bring these big projects together that have an IT acumen that can work with the developers, and the testers and make sure, and the business, and make sure we deliver as well. So lots of opportunities I see from banks overall. And this is for all banks because we're all based on technology.
Don't you have a lot of banks that just have like legacy tech that's just so outdated that needs to be improved, right? Like Citigroup and others. I've always hear complaints that they need to really massively invest in it.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of folks have been putting in the investments in though. So I do see that. Of course, there's going to be some old systems here and there, probably for most banks. But I would say more people are making moves to upgrading technology, especially when you think about cyber attacks. If I go back to that, uh, if it's older, it could be more susceptible. And we need to make sure we're protecting our customers. This is everybody. So I do see people taking that dive and investing where necessary in technologies. Henceforth, bringing that skill set of people to help come in. I think the only trick from a technologist working in a bank is being able to also work with your clients, the business folks that you're helping, those users. And so that's where I think it goes back into communication and collaboration and making sure we're listening to find out what do we need to build? How do we create these requirements? And having them tested, et cetera.
Now, I appreciate the advice that you've shared and kind of the counsel, and
Sure.
looking at your background, it certainly makes sense where your role is focused on strategy and advising these
Yes.
senior leaders and these clients in terms of what they need to do in terms of how to be more efficient and optimize kind of their solutions there to succeed business wise. How did you get to that comfort level of having that confidence and that, frankly, like that knowledge to be able to, one day just have a meeting and let's say meet with an executive at a big client company? What is involved in that strategy role in going to that step?
Well, I have to give a plug for, I think, working at any of the big four. I worked at PwC, but if you've got any experience at a Deloitte, KPMG, EMY, PwC being mine, they give you that opportunity on learning presentation skills. How do you work with clients? How do you work from that end? And so I would say a lot of that skill came from working in the big four. And then really it's that confidence in knowing what you're talking about, right? In the sense of, and if you don't know what you're talking about, you learn about what you're talking about. Don't get me wrong. There's new things all the time. You're not going to know everything, and people understand that. So I think it's also kind of reading up on things that, are the topic, making sure you have that. And I would say from a strategy end, really, if you think about strategy, it's all about value, right? How do I provide the best value for a bank? What's the best thing I can do to optimize, processes, et cetera. So everyone's looking for value in either optimization or financial wise. And so I think from that essence, it's understanding what are the pain points if you're working for an organization. What do we need to work on? What are the issues? Is this a regulatory issue? Is this a timing issue? Whatever it may be. And then maybe also trying to see when you see the pain points, trying to talk to people about some of their ideas and what do they believe works, what have they seen work, et cetera. Getting things, I always say with executives, like on a one pager, if you get to actually present to them, something they can see more of the issue, risk, and pain points, and here's a potential solution, proposed solution, and talking to them, getting their insights is what I would say. But overall, I would believe, to me, it's about communication. It's communicating, understanding, communicating first internally with the teams. What are the problems here? What do we need to solve for? Usually your execs, they don't know a lot of these problems because they're not working in the weeds, right? So you have to make sure you're collaborating, communicating here, taking that insight and sharing it up here. And then hopefully together it's married in the sense of, the optimization or the value comes. But I would say, to me, a big focus is when you have an executive's time, you're pretty targeted on what you want to share. You don't waste time. That's why I say if you need a one pager or something, that's great. And you're really saying, hey, I appreciate your time. Our focus today is there's this issue of X, and just want to put this in front of you. I've talked to the team. Here's the issue. Here's some thoughts on what we can do to make it better. What are your thoughts on this? Here's proposed solutions, etc. So I know, Rick, that's kind of a lot, but I feel like it's digging into where's our opportunity. And don't come with just the problem. Oh, I've heard this my whole career. Come with some potential solutions. Like, don't just come and say, Rick, this isn't working. And you're going to say, okay, thanks. But I'm saying, hey, Rick, this isn't working, but these are ways I know we can make it better. 1, 2, 3, here's potential costs with it. Here's our efforts, whatever it may be. And this way, when I'm talking to Rick in this example, Rick's going to be like, oh, yeah, I know that's a problem, but I love these ideas. Tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. And I think that's the one thing, is you want to make sure you're coming to people, not just with problems, but with proposed solutions.
That makes so much sense. And to go back, Annette, to what you're talking about with PwC, that was an
Sure.
interesting comment. So it sounds like you would recommend, if possible, for someone starting their career or somewhat within their career, to maybe perhaps go to a Deloitte, a KPMG, what have you, but you learn how to have these kind of conversations you're talking about now, how to interact with executives, how to get your points across really quickly, concisely. I never really thought of it. So is that something that you would recommend to people? Where would depending, it doesn't matter where they're going, to Wall Street or other places, but to really have a grounding in building your confidence and your knowledge.
I would definitely recommend it, because also they have different areas. I was in the risk and regulatory
Mhm.
part of PwC, which worked in financial services. Now, keep in mind, I'm sure they've got the manufacturing, they've got XYZ elemental P, right? But I would recommend it. They also have great programs if folks are coming out of school to check it out. They have great internship programs. I think it's easier to kind of get in and learn from that aspect. But I just also feel you get a full, well-rounded view of how do you present? What are the industries? What are the pain points from an industry perspective as well? Because when you see a couple of banks have this issue, you're thinking, oh, I bet a lot of these banks have this issue from that end, from the big four kind of end. So that's what I would say. I would recommend it, Jack, especially if students are watching. Obviously, banks, we have great internships as well for people to check it out, but so do the big four. And, I feel it's great learning. And really, then I think it goes back to, if you think about your career, what is it that you enjoy and what do you want to do? Right. And maybe some of these places can help give you an opportunity to see a different lens of what it's like to work at a bank, what it's like to work in these firms. And you pick and choose what you want to do, because it is your life and you want to be happy in whatever you do, because you're going to spend more time doing your work than probably anything else, unfortunately, in our lifetime, right? Spend more time working. Hate to say it, but it's true.
Now, if you're a bit more like tenured or experienced, where maybe it doesn't make sense to jump to a big four consulting firm, like how else do you suggest that someone can kind of test the waters or build those skills?
Well, I have a friend named Matthew Campbell who started Palmetto Maple, and start your own firm and company. That's what I would say. So Matthew used to be a colleague of mine. He's no longer working for the bank, and he's created his own firm. He was able to focus on getting a CPA license, something he had in the back burner, and now opening his own accounting firm in Palmetto Maple. So I raise that because I have a lot of friends that have just said, you know what, I'm going to create my own company. And to your point, Rick, it's like either there's entrepreneurship area you can go into. There's also, I would say, you can be seasoned and go to a big four and be one of their managing directors or kind of their thought leaders, we call them also, depending on your background. I've seen people come in, especially when I worked at PwC, they hired some senior professionals come in and they came in and they gave oversight about, oh, I understand this problem. Let me help you with this. And I'll never forget it's because they brought that seasoned expertise into the area that we were able to pinpoint. We could see the problems before the client knew the problem. You know what I mean? Because they knew these problems from the past. So I would say, Rick, if not entrepreneurship, looking for opportunities even to connect to see if there are firms you can be more of a consultant from that basis and use that experience to help others.
I mean, in that vein, some of our listeners, the feedback that they might receive in a performance review plan is, hey, you're doing great work, but you're too in the weeds. You're too tactical. We'd love to see you up here, or
Mhm.
something they might say something like, oh, how can we get you to think more strategically? How would you break that down? What exactly is strategy in a business context? How does one, work or act more strategically at work?
So first of all, if I can say something on feedback, is I'm hoping people are getting feedback more often than the end of the year, right? And that's one thing I've had a lot of talks with folks is we should be getting feedback if we can, every manager touch point, monthly at least, right? Twice a month if possible. So that's one thing on feedback. So try to get feedback more often, but I hear that a lot. I want you to be more this, but you're more this, as in this is you're creating, you're doing your job, you're keeping the lights on, you're doing all the work that needs to happen. And I think a lot of what is happening there is perhaps there's a lack of delegation. Are we delegating where we can different tasks that will give you that time? Usually it is true. I'm too busy. I don't have time to think about X because I'm busy doing Y so that you can have your trading for the day or you can, do whatever is essential and I keep my job, if you don't mind me saying. So it's be more of like, can I delegate different tasks that are taking time, the busy work, the busy but necessary work? Are there things I can delegate? If I can delegate, or even by thinking about delegation and optimization, that's part of your strategy right there. How about you take a moment, step back, look at your current, space that you're working in, and think about what are those pain points? What can I do to make things better? Well, hold on. That's strategy, right? I'm stopping, I'm looking at the picture and I'm giving ideas. And then it goes back to my proposal. Maybe it's not going to the C-suite yet. Maybe it's going to your manager where you're saying, you know what? I see this problem. And here's again the proposed solutions. What are your thoughts on this? And if it builds more traction, then that goes up and up, into the chain. But I would say take that step back, look at your current area. What can I do better? Look at your current tasks. Can I delegate better? And I would say there's a lot of questions in there, but you need to have that time for self-reflection and wherever you can find that time. It might be after hours for a bit, but even if it's that 1 hour after hours, maybe that can help you so much.
That's a good tip, right? Because for me, it always seemed like that feedback was so vague, right? I'm always
Oh,
hesitant
yeah.
to share that with my own direct reports or my teammates, where usually I find that I can give more direct feedback and use kind of a more recent example and say, hey, pull them aside in this meeting, you did this, and have you thought about doing it this way, right? Not
Mhm.
necessarily spelling it out for them or implying that my way is the best way, but really trying to bring them to kind of a new perspective or to actually like start that thinking process. Because I find that for most people, everyone's smart, they're in the
Yes.
job, they have the skills, they know the
Mhm.
area. And so if you just kind of give them that space or that time or even prompt them to do this, they might be doing it for the first time because they think, to your point, oh gosh, now I Rick is telling me to think about this, now I actually have to do it right now and think about it. Whereas previously they'd be like, oh, well, I'm so busy, right?
Yeah, and take that time. It's such an investment too. It also shows you care about what you're doing in your process. And if I can add value to my company, I mean, boy, my company's excited, aren't they? I'm giving value and I'm a thought leader in their mind if I'm able to do that. So I would say, Rick, that's the key. But I think feedback, it's funny you mentioned about being vague. We did a talk on feedback and how it's difficult for women to get feedback because, like in my example, let's say Jack is giving me feedback. He might be afraid I'm going to start breaking into tears because he told me I need to work better on something. And, that's not the case, but that's the issue is sometimes they say men can be uncomfortable giving women feedback. And so what we're trying to do is how do we demystify this where if Jack sees something I need to do better, he's telling me and not like, "Oh, I don't want to get into it right now with Annette because I'm afraid or whatever it may be, So that's one thing you mentioned to Rick on feedback is we also need, I think, not just women, but all of us, we should be asking for feedback. We should be trying to push for feedback. And then on the side note, we need to be ready to accept feedback pending it's coming from a good source. If it's coming from somebody, there's an issue relationship wise, still take it, thank them for it. I appreciate your perception on this and I'll take that under review. Thank you. But if it's somebody, and let's say, Rick, you're giving me some real feedback that you're saying, hey, listen, we've been working together. There's some issues here. We can work on this. And it's my duty to say, okay, Rick, if I did this, is that going to be better? Or what are your thoughts if I were to do this instead? It's a conversation and it's not just you telling me things. And sometimes, in the moment, our mind might go like, wait, what is going on here? And that's okay. Maybe take a moment, soak it in, but go back and say, Rick, I appreciate your feedback. I want to just say, what if I did this, this? Does that make sense and help make it better? And so again, pushing us to ask for feedback and hopefully for those that can give feedback to also make sure they're giving that feedback and not just at the end of the year. It's too late, give it now.
I'm so glad that you brought up that topic, Ned, because I think one of the most challenging things that people face is that they don't get feedback. And to me, what I think happens, especially in the job market when people are looking for a job, you go on interviews, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interviews, and then we all see this ghosted, don't hear back, no feedback, no constructive criticism. And then you're left like, what's going on here? And it seems the trend is, the HR people and, whoever is behind the curtains, they're just afraid, I think, to give feedback that then, like you said, oh,
Yes.
am I going to feel like you're attacking me? Or, I don't, no, you're not, you're wrong about that. I'm doing fantastic. And it just gets ugly and it gets weird. And then you get issues of prejudice and discrimination. And so, like, I think what happened, in my opinion, it just seems obvious what's going on is they're just avoiding it. They're just avoiding the
Yeah.
topic. And that doesn't help
Agree.
anybody at all. It makes it worse because now you have people who are looking for jobs. They don't know, maybe they're not interviewing well. They don't know why. So they don't know how to improve. And so then they're left feeling, all right, did I do something wrong? Is there a black cloud over my head? Did I say the wrong thing? And now I'm persona non grata. No one wants to hire me. And it's bad. Or then you have a whole cohort of workers who aren't doing well because no one's pushing back on them and giving them feedback to say, hey, here's what you need. I'm not saying it to be cold-hearted, but this is what you need to get to the next level or to at least keep your job. So that's a very important thing. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, and again, I think it's the onus is on us, right? We should be asking for feedback. And then managers on the call, if someone's asking you for feedback, you need to give them feedback.
Yeah.
And not just say, oh, you're doing great. That's the easy one. That's easy. You're doing great. Well, you're doing great doesn't give me, and this is where we need to ask questions. My example, if Jack were to say, you're doing great, Jack, thanks. I appreciate that I'm doing great. What can I do to get better? What can I do to get to that next level? What are your thoughts on that? And where I'm pushing and not letting Jack get away with, oh, you're doing great, where some people be like, oh, thanks, goodbye, I'm doing great. You got to push.
Isn't that like the whole thing where you see with that Brittany Peach, I think the young woman's name was, where she was being let go by 2 disembodied voices that she didn't even know who they were and letting her go. And she was saying, hey, but my boss was saying I get great marks. I was doing wonderful. Like, why are you letting me go? And that's exactly what you're talking about. Like, they're feeling, hey, they're saying I'm wonderful, wonderful. And then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from under them. Like, how the heck did that just happen?
It's just too easy to say you're doing great.
Yeah.
And I actually now, I have to be honest, I get nervous if people just say you're doing great.
Mhm.
And the only reason I mean that is because
Yeah.
then you're maybe not looking to stretch me into a role that's going to bring me higher. You don't want to talk to me about something maybe that you think I can work on. Or to be honest, maybe you're just being lazy. You know, everyone's doing great. And it's easy. It's easy for a manager. And that's where, again, it's up to us to say, I appreciate the positive feedback. I really do. But what can I do to get to that next level? What can I do to be better? And, you know, then all of a sudden, next thing, Jack's gonna be like, whoa, okay, well, you know, here's a question. And, but maybe I would get my manager, you know, to start thinking about it and be able to come back with, you know what, we should have you speak more with senior executives. We should have you work on your presentation skills. I don't know, whatever it is you want to throw out there. I always love to walk away with something I can work with rather than you're doing great. Although people like the positive vibes, I totally get it. But sometimes you need to have a little bit more if you want to continue to excel and, you know, be valued at your company.
Now, let me flip the script a little bit and
Sure.
say you're on the other side and, going out on a limb and seeking that feedback is terrifying, right? If it's positive, you
I
just think
know.
like, oh gosh, like maybe I want to play it down and I want to be humble and not, seem like arrogant and say, oh yeah, thank you. I am great. Or alternatively, what if it just seems like, oh, well, is this when I'm being micromanaged? Or, oh gosh, it seems like I just can't do anything right, every single day or every meeting, my manager or someone else is pulling me aside. How do we grapple with those kind of feelings when perhaps for some folks, just one, putting themselves out on a limb is quite hard, and the second is
Yeah.
they might not like what they hear when they actually do take that step and seek that feedback.
Well, I think overall it's funny. If you get feedback, first, I think that is a gift, right? You know, feedback is a gift. You hear that, and then I'm like, well, it depends on the feedback, I always like to say. But yes, it is a gift either way, even if it's bad feedback. But I would say there are like classes I've been in on dealing with feedback. So just to tell you, it's like a whole study. So when people do give you feedback, sometimes, you know, the human brain, when we hear stuff we don't agree with, I think we sometimes get in like our own little shock mode. Like, I can't believe you're really saying this. And then we're not there anymore because we've gone in here, like somewhere in our mind. So I think the bottom line is always to just listen to what's being said to you. If you deem it negative, first, I always will tell you, and I've been there, I've had feedback. I'm like, okay, is this for real? And I guess, yeah, that's their feedback. Say, thank you for your feedback. I always thank people for the feedback, even if it's good or bad, perceived one. Thank you for your feedback. And also remember, there's perception. There is a perception always tied in. So it could be somebody is assuming something, thinking something, doesn't mean it's real, but that's what feedback is, understanding perception. So if you're able to at least, you know, stay out of the shock mode, say thank you for the feedback, be able to take it back. And you know what? Talk to a trusted colleague, somebody you trust. And like I could go and say, listen, Rick, you know, Jack gave me this feedback. He told me XYZ. What do you think? And Rick, if you're my friend, you can say, well, listen, Jack's got some points here. Let me give you some thoughts. Or you can say, listen, Jack just doesn't like you. I'm just kidding. And don't worry about it. But, you know, I'm just saying it's take the feedback serious first. Talk to other folks. Don't discard it as my manager doesn't like me or whatnot. And that's more my joke. But I do know sometimes there are these weird situations. So I don't mean to downplay that. But talk to a colleague. Am I doing this wrong? And just kind of to your point, Rick, it's a difficult place to be, but what I would always say is be professional, take the feedback. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate seeing your perception of me, and I'm going to take this back and see what I can do. And end of that conversation, perhaps, and then think about it. If you need to revisit after you do that, then create that revisit, that other meeting. But I would also say talk to trusted colleagues, talk to mentors, tell them about the feedback. Going back to don't be shy. Remember me on the phone. Hey, I got this feedback. It's bad feedback, but let me tell you, does this make sense? Well, Annette, maybe you were coming across as this, or maybe this happened, or tell me a little more. it could be a good dialogue. And remember, perception isn't always reality, right? But you have to know perception does exist.
So
I
piggybacking
appreciate
off
that
of,
insight. Yeah.
Mhm.
piggybacking off of that, Annette, maybe before we wrap up, would you like to just
Sure.
share again about your organization? So for people who are unaware,
Oh, geez.
and if they
Which
want to
one?
join,
I'm in everything.
oh,
So
or how many
Iowa
have I?
law grad, Go Blue, Michigan, MBA, you
All
know,
right, how about we'll
Texas
go to
State.
the women on Wall. I call it Women on Wall Street. I know that's not the
Oh, the
name of it,
Financial Women's
but yeah,
Association.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, Jack, you're so kind. So I am a member of many organizations.
Mhm.
One's 100 Women in Finance, and there's Forward. But the one that I'm president of right now is a Financial Women's Association. We're based out of New York, but we have members from all over. We do have technologists and people in finance, and like I said, lawyers, et cetera. It's a great organization. We have men and women. Check out www.fwa.org if you want to learn more. I'm always happy to speak with prospective members on it too. And it's about bringing people together, just like we're talking about here. How can we help each other in our career journey to be successful? Because listen, if you're successful, I'm successful, and there's so much room in this world for a lot of success. So check it out. And if you want to come to Greece, May 11th through the 18th, we're doing that as well. So come to Athens and Santorini. And Jack, you're gonna have to join us too, and Rick as well.
I'm really interested. Rick, what do you say? I don't want to be the only guy there. I'll feel like really weird.
You're not the only guy. You won't be the only guy there. And we've got great speakers coming up. But definitely what I would say, find an organization, a group where you can befriend people that have like-minded interests and find that community. Whatever that community is, it's going to help support and empower you. And maybe if we can be that for you, join us.
Gosh, I love that those insights because you make it sound so simple, right? Like I'm finding myself nodding along. I think the people that are watching just might think like, oh gosh, this guy is just nodding along. He's just a poser, but it really speaks to me in terms of like when you break it down, right? Like you're able to make it so relatable and approachable. And I think that I certainly got a lot of this conversation, and I'm so grateful for you coming on the show.
I'm happy to be
Yes.
here. And again, always happy to help others. So it's a pleasure talking with both of you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Annette. That was terrific. Awesome.
Thank you.